Hello everyone, it is New Year's Eve 2020 today, and here is my book summary, which is very short this year. The Rise of Nerd Politics by John Postill. This summarizes the internet-based activism, mainly in Spain. We read this we read a chapter of it for a class in media activism. Sort of summarizes the state of net politics over the past 10-15 years. Tim Ingold, Lines, A Brief History. It's a brief history of lines, whatever that means. It's very subjective, and that's why I think this book should actually be called I Love Lines, because Ingold is very passionate about them. And it's a great read, and Ingold is my new favorite anthropologist, actually, which takes us to Anthropology Why It Matters, which is seen as an introduction to anthropology, but it is actually not. It's like more written for anthropologists, I would say. And the main thesis is that you must take people seriously. And if you just do that, everything else is solved, and you don't have to look in manuals about how to do ethics properly and so on. He also has another thesis, which is that anthropology is learning from people, not to study people. And I think that's obvious, but anthropology has not been like that before, and this is a constant struggle in anthropology. So people like you and me, we are human beings, we learn from each other. By studying each other, we learn more about ourselves. That's anthropology, and I love that approach. And we move on to Sharon Kinsella, adult manga. Adult as in real, for adults. Sharon Kinsella had the opportunity to do lots of interviews with business professionals in Japan in the 1990s. In a way that would not be possible anymore, because it was at a perfect moment in time. So it was just after the manga business had peaked in Japan, and adult manga is it's like an ethnography of a manga reading country, and how it's working with the editors, sales and artists and so on. Very, very interesting. We have Vogel, Heimliche Liebe, which is a German book about male intergenerational relationships from the boy's perspective and the man's perspective and the parent's perspective. So it's an interview-based ethnography, one can say. Feels very unique and extremely interesting. We move on to self-help. Steven Pressfield, The War of Art and Do the Work. He basically argues that as a creative person, you must ship, as he calls it. It's like closing a project and actually getting it out there. It's a super good book. I really recommend The War of Art. When it comes to Do the Work, he sort of repeats himself a lot, and the two books overlap. So I wonder if he maybe followed his own advice to just ship out without making anything really perfect, which he should maybe have done. In the same genre, Austin Kleon, Show Your Work. Very short and good book. People say they read it in half an hour. I read it in half a day, and I can recommend it. The only novel I read was Abdellah Taia. The French title is Une mélancolie árabe, an Arab Melancholia. He was very much talked about a few years ago, and it is fragmented. It is extremely short and very, very good. I highly recommend it. We move on to manga. This one is a rule book about how to make a manga, how to draw a manga. And it is done for children or young adults. So it covers everything from material to like character development, story arcs, and it's made like a manga, very easy to read even for a non-Japanese person on my Japanese level. This is so fascinating that children in Japan are like schooled into this genre, this medium of manga in this way, for example. we have, I read online Yankee Shota to Otaku Onesan by Hoshimi Yumi-san. This is about an otaku woman in Japan who is very obsessed with manga and animation. And then all of a sudden a young boy moves in on her street and they befriend each other. And this evokes all sorts of conundrums for her in regards to what is reality, what is actual reality, what is fiction, and so on. That kind of theme, which is very interesting to me and my research. And on that theme, we have Kurumatani Haruko-san, who has come back this year with極上の男子と暮らしています. I'm living with a super hot boy, basically. This is a bit similar because the 16-year-old protagonist, she is forced by her mom to live alone with a boy of the same age, because the mom thinks that it's time for her daughter to start dating. And this boy is very naughty. He sexually harasses her the whole time, which is sort of a theme in Kurumatani's works. And of course, she's disgusted by that. But at the same time, he looks exactly like her idol, Shun-sama, in her favorite manga. So once again, you have this tension between the actual world and the manga world and people who can't make up their minds about it. I love that is such a frequent, it seems to be such a frequent theme in manga. So this is just part 1, so I'm still going to read part 2. The last manga I read was Yuun Boru by Takei Hiroyuki from 2010. He made Shaman King, which was very successful as a manga and an anime starting in 1998. And this is something he did around 2010, like I said, which was not as successful, but it's like a dystopian apocalypse manga where men and machines have merged. So this is Yuun Boru 11D. He's half boy, half machine. It was not so interesting, to be honest. It was very hard to read. It's without furigana, the help texts, which is strange because I thought it's made for children, but maybe it's not. Anyway, that was everything this year. So see you soon. Bye-bye and Happy New Year.